City Manager Layton.
Thank you, Mayor. We have three proclamations on the agenda. On page 2, we have 5 people scheduled for the public agenda. Page 4, unfinished council business item number 1, would approve a $5 million IRB for the renovation of 140,000 square feet of warehouse and manufacturing space on West Harry. This project has been amended from what was in front of the council previously. It now does not use the spec warehouse program, and it has a return on investment that's more favorable. Number 1, under new business, it would receive and file the actuarial reports for the city's 2 pension systems. Number 2 would approve the sale of 47 single-family homes that were previously owned by the Public Housing Authority and would allocate $1.8 million from the Affordable Housing Fund to assist with the rehabilitation of these homes. Number 3 would approve $425,000 for improvements to O.J. Watson Park. On page 5.
That says public art design. Can you explain that one for me?
Can, yeah, thank you. On page 5, number 4, would approve the non-alcoholic beverage concession for the golf courses. Number 5 would approve an assignment of the management agreement for the ice center to a group called the Sports Facilities Companies.
Where are they based out of?
Is Reggie here, or somebody from Parks? Reggie, where are they based? Reggie, can you hear? If you're talking, you're muted.
Is it Clearwater, Florida? Thank you.
If it's different than that, Mayor, we'll get back to you on that. Number 7 would approve a contract and budget for a water reuse alternative study. Number 8 would approve a 10% increase in the application fees for the planning department. Number 9 was schedule a public hearing date for the consideration of a CID for the redevelopment project at Lincoln and Broadway. Page 6, number 1, would consider a conditional use in District 6. In this case, there's a difference between the MAPC and the DAB recommendations. Number 2 would actually acknowledge that the applicant for this request, this rezoning request, has withdrawn their request. Its property is located at Greenwich and East 37th. This had been previously deferred at the February 11th council meeting and rescheduled for this meeting.
Is that the project regarding the low water pressure? Okay, thank you.
Page 7, number 3, would consider the vacation of a platted setback and easement in District 1. Number 4 would consider rezoning in District 6. Again, there's a difference between MAPC and the DAB. Page 8, non-consent airport agenda. Number 1 would approve a lease agreement with WSU Tech for the construction of 85,000 square feet of hangar and educational facility space at Jabara.
And I will state this during the meeting, but I will be abstaining from this vote.
And I will be voting despite being on the board because I did not vote for this item as a board member.
Thank you. Under council member agenda, you have approval of several travel requests for the mayor and council members. Nothing on 9 or 10. Page 11 and page 12, asking you to approve 5 building facade and 1 asbestos remediation project closeouts. On page 12, number 15, approve the sale of a surplus remnant parcel to an adjacent property owner. Page 13, number 17, I won't highlight this every week, but this is first time it's showing on the consent agenda. This is to receive and file the voting report for recent proclamations. And then you have a long listing of the second reading of ordinances on assessments. And I think we'll get to the last page, I believe. I'm sorry? Not necessarily. And it's the last page. 21 would approve a lease agreement with Clemens Aviation to build 2 hangars at Javara. So Mayor, that's all I have for May 13th. Quick preview for May 20th. On page 3, new business. Number 1 would approve an amendment to the car park agreement to reflect changes in the Delano and Old Town parking enforcement. Number 2 would amend the fireworks ordinance to reflect changes in state law. However, that will not include the option of having a 12-month sale. Number 3 is our quarterly financial report. Number 4 would approve a pilot program for the drones as first responder program. Number 5 would approve a joint resolution, ordinance, and appointments for the Wichita Sedgwick County Addiction Intervention Coalition. Page 4, number 6 would approve $8.8 million in water system improvements. They're going to come to you, the council and commission will approve them. Managers are just finishing, we're looking at 11 names that we're going to give to the mayor and the chair of the commission, and then they'll forward their final recommendations to the council for approval. Number 8 on page 4 would approve a contract for pre-employment exams and drug and alcohol screening. Page 6, 3C would approve continued grant funding for an overdose analyst in the police department. On page 7, number 7 would approve grant funding to support the organized crime drug enforcement task force. Skip to page 9. Number 14 would approve an amendment to the continuum of care agreement reflecting funding from HUD. And number 16 would approve a lease agreement for additional space at Eisenhower for Garver LLC. And then number 10.
Can I go back to page 9 really quick?
Yeah.
The continuum of care is specifically homelessness services, is that correct?
I believe that is correct in this case, yes.
Are we looking at budget cuts?
No, this is actually a little bit more money than what we had originally anticipated.
Okay.
And then page 10, this would approve on-call engineering services contracts with 2 firms for work at the airport. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I'm
sorry.
do you want to continue with this?
Yeah, just one quick note on I know it's just setting the hearing for the CID on Lincoln and Broadway, but the 10% set aside for public good is actually going to go towards the now recognized as state firefighter memorial at Lincoln Park. So that's a little extra positivity coming from the CID as well. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
That's item number 9.
Yes, on next, and it's just setting the hearing, so we'll hear the actual CID here, I think the second meeting of June, if I'm not mistaken. But grateful to the SOCI team there for including that as the public option, because I I think there's a lot of potential to do some good in that park and really recognize the firefighters' sacrifices that they've made over the years.
We have a presentation also.
Do you want to do that
Yeah,
first?
if you're ready for it. We're going to do an update from a cultural services perspective, and so turn it over to Lindsay.
All right. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here today. About a year ago, we adopted, or you all adopted, the Cultural Arts Strategic Plan, just as a healthy memory, and we're a year into it. So as part of that plan's adoption last year, we made a commitment to bringing an annual update, so that's what we're here to do today. A little bit of background. We had 5 areas of focus for the plan. 1, to ensure all residents have equal opportunities to engage with cultural arts, to address the needs of city-owned cultural arts facilities, engage strategically with historically underserved populations, stimulate the creation of new cultural arts opportunities and new artwork in the community, and then we also wanted to be sure to identify our anticipated partners. And a little bit just reminder, our mission and vision statement are as follows. Our mission is to ensure everyone has equitable access to cultural arts opportunities by activating and strengthening the creative potential of our community. And our vision is that Wichita is recognized as a community where artistic expression is an integral part of the city's success, arts thrive, and cultural heritage is preserved and celebrated. This kind of pinwheel you'll see throughout the presentation today. It's located on page 11 of the strategic plan. This is really our existing operations, operational structure, and kind of our policy framework. So everything we do kind of fits into this pie chart in specific different areas. So rolling through, we have 4 goals in the plan, and I'll kind of break down where we are in each one of the goals. Our first goal was to increase participation of residents, specifically those historically underserved in the cultural arts. Our second goal was to strengthen the capacity of the division, and our third goal was to increase the impact of city-owned assets and facilities. And then our fourth goal is to stimulate the creation of new work. So those tied right back into our areas of focus. If we break down the different objectives that we had throughout, and I'll kind of give you a quick update on where we are in all the objectives. I want to say there are about 35, so I'll kind of fly through them, but if you have questions on any of them, please let me know. So the first one was to increase by 10% each year in each zip code the number of underserved residents who access the arts and cultural opportunities. So for year 1, for the last year, we've really been working on setting baseline data. We've never tracked zip code data on impact before, so we really just are focusing on baseline. So what is our status of where we are right now? Working from here on out, we're going to work on that, improving it by 10% each year. And I will say this was the first time we requested zip code data from our fundees through the cultural funding program. Not all of them have been doing it. Moving forward, they're contractually obligated to track zip code data. So for the ones that do have it, they gave us what they had, but I believe we had 38 organizations receive funding from us last year, and about 13 of them provided robust zip code data. So the numbers and the metrics you're going to see are really based on the majority of those who were able to provide zip code data. But we actually feel pretty confident in the data that we did receive, that it does give us a strong baseline. So in particular, 1,400 unique zip codes were tracked, all 50 states and 46 different countries. I will say Puerto Rico and DC, and I believe Guam was also listed in our impact zone as well. If we look at just our impact map for Wichita, we had 93,000 interactions, resident interactions across the 13 organizations that did report. This is kind of just our baseline heat map of where the arts are really high performing and where there's lower impact. That's not to say that any zip code is more or less served by the arts, but this is just what we know to be true today based on those 13 organizations that did report. I will say there is nothing really surprising, but now it's nice to have the data so we can do strategic incentives to asking our cultural partners to really serve different areas. Also just want to highlight some not discrepancies in the numbers, but things to consider are the population density in different zip codes. 67227 in the and it's in the red in the bottom right-hand corner. I think there's only 400 residents within that zip code, so things to consider within the heat map, as well as the population density based on how many arts and interactions are happening in those areas. But this does give us a lot of information as we move forward to really incentivize our partners to make sure that they're working in those currently underserved zip codes, so we can make sure that everyone has equitable access to the arts, because that's our ultimate mission. Our objective 1.2 is to improve communication with residents and build brand recognition. Something that we heard throughout the planning process is people didn't know who we were, what we did, how to get a hold of us, so we've been working really hard in that area. In particular, we host two major monthly kind of get-togethers. We host an Arts Mixer, which is a public kind of just get-together networking event for the arts community. We pop up at a different venue throughout the month and just have an opportunity to get together and talk about what's going on in the sector. And then we have a more strategic meeting called the Arts Forum, which is the arts leaders from across the different organizations to share what they've got going on. So one is more for the general public, one is for leaders within the organizations to meet and network and build partnerships and talk about what's happening in the sector. And across both, we had over 1,000 participants last year. We also created some new marketing materials, specifically at City Arts, to really showcase our affordable childcare offerings and scholarship information. We have a lot of different offerings at City Arts in particular, and we really want to make sure the public is aware of those. And then something we also heard throughout the planning process was the need for a community events calendar that's specific to arts and culture. And the Shout is a new publication that came out within the last few years. And so versus us creating something, they've created something, and we're partnering with them to help advance that. So the Shout is a great resource for our arts community, but has a really comprehensive events calendar that we're able to support.
Real quick, Lindsay.
Yeah.
How is Visit Wichita included in any of these? Because I know there had been discussions about them advertising some of our museums more, maybe billboards and whatnot, so.
Yes and no. Visit Wichita does an incredible job. I would say their calendar is almost too robust sometimes, so that it's really, there's so much, it's hard to tell like what is sector specific. The Shout's really, their niche is the arts and culture industry. So they're really only showcasing what's happening in the arts, and they have more of a regional lens too. So it's not just Wichita specific. They're really looking at, I mean, they do serve all of Kansas, but they're built out of Wichita. But we partner with Visit Wichita a lot on all sorts of different things. Because their focus is bringing tourism in, they're not necessarily focused on billboards locally to promote our museums here, but they are promoting them outside of the market as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Moving on into our second objective was to increase funding sources and resources for cultural arts. I will say we have not found a silver bullet to help us in this area, but we have improved the cultural funding program quite a bit and have continued to look at our different opportunities. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it on to Jesse Koza to talk about our cultural funding program itself. And Jesse oversees the funding program and our grant program and has done an incredible job over the last few years of really increasing our grant application and impact. So with that, I'll pass it on to Jesse.
Good morning, Council. Jesse Koza, Division of Arts and Cultural Services. Like Lindsay said, we have done a great job over the past couple of years improving our grants program. In 2024, we overhauled the application itself to be more in line with the strategic plan. That was sort of one half of our updates to the grant program. I'll get to the other in just a moment. We did provide training to the Cultural Funding Committee in partnership with the Wichita Foundation. That was helpful as both give grants. They were a great resource for that. I'll talk in a moment about our increase in grant applications. Like the slide says, we did present at the National Grant Makers in the Arts Conference. It was very nice. We were able to take a couple of our community board members with us as well to also present. So that was very helpful for everyone involved. And then as you may recall, this past year we received a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts to present our Arts Thrive grant. That was $75,000 split into three $25,000 grants, and we're beginning to see those projects come to fruition now in these the next few months. So I just want to give you an overview of the past 3 years of the grant opportunities that we've given. So operational grants are on your left. As you can see in 2023, we received 20 applications and were able to fund 19. The Cultural Funding Committee really tries to make sure that the majority of organizations that apply for funding are funded to some degree. And through work in the community, we were able to increase that to about 26 applications in '24, and now we're up to 39 applications in 2025. Based on a recent survey that we did of the organizations, we know that to be about half of our nonprofits in town, half of our cultural arts nonprofits. We have about 80. Artist Access Grant applications, when we started here in 2023, those numbers, 4 applications, 3 funded. Decided to work very hard to make sure that that message got out to the community. Now we're up to 36 applications in 2024 and 71 applications in 2025. So there is a demand for those in the community, and it's very nice to see that trust coming from them.
Did you mention that there are 80 cultural organizations in Wichita?
Nonprofit arts and culture organizations, based on a survey we did in 2022.
And is that an increase or a decrease from whatever data you might have regarding? number of
Unfortunately, I'm not
nonprofits?
certain if it's an increase or decrease. I do know that it's an increase in the number who are interacting with us. Looking at our Arts and Economic Prosperity Survey, we had about 2/3 of those participate in AEP 6. AEP 5, which was 5 years previous, we only had 1/3 of them. So we have gotten many more of them into the fold and working together as a collective.
And is there a list of these 80 organizations?
We have that list. I don't know where it would exist.
It would be helpful maybe for the whole community to know that there are these 80 nonprofit organizations that touch cultural arts in some form.
Typically, they're smaller organizations that don't always have the capacity to stay in touch with us, but we're working on it. So just to give you some high-level numbers from our 2024 annual reports, our 38 organizations that we funded in 2024 reported 1.4 million in total attendance. About 100,000 school-aged children served. Those are the vast majority of them being Wichita children. 4,500 free arts events, and just about 150,000 underserved audience members, including low socioeconomic people and members of our disabled community. So just to give you some quick highlights from those reports, the Kansas African American Museum said of their funding, it's an investment in their mission to make the Kansas African American experience resonate with every Kansan. The Ulrich Museum highlighted that, we didn't give them $270,000, but our money goes into that pot, and the funds went to local vendors, designers, artists, printers, restaurants, and suppliers. So that money is staying locally. The Library Foundation, points out that the feedback that they get from our process is critical to helping organizations grow and dream bigger. And then Exploration Place, who's, as far as this grant process goes, constantly scores the highest out of all of ours, says that the process ends up being helpful throughout the year because it is so thorough and comprehensive. Some of our smaller organizations that received funding either for the first time or just somewhat recently, the Forum Theater Company put theirs toward marketing, which has significantly increased attendance, season subscriptions, and an increased donor base. Metropolitan Ballet, which is one of our newest organizations, was just very thankful for the support. And then Arise Ensemble, which is very near to my heart, said, every day Arise attempts to make a difference in the world with our art form. Lots ahead. We celebrate our 37th year this year, and there's no slowing up due to age. And if you don't know those folks, they're fine folks. Gerald, who runs that company, he's delightful. Just very quickly, we had a ceramicist. This experience was invaluable. Janice, who builds costumes for the ballet, she continues to share the knowledge that she's gotten and continues to teach it to others, so it's not just impacting her. Manasi Kulkarni, who's an Indian classical dancer, helped grow her skills and knowledge. Dominique says it allows her to communicate her ideas and emotions with greater clarity. Twyla Smith connected with professionals from around the globe, and so around the globe also includes Wichita, Kansas. And then Joseph Peck, percussionist, this helped him to build a stronger foundation for his business. So these 71 people who apply, these are small business owners, and we are helping them grow that impact throughout the city. And then finally, I mentioned our changes to the 2025 grant were sort of one half. Coming up for this, for next year's application, the 2026 Cultural Funding Program is going to be split into 3 tiers. The introductory tier is called Cultural Partner. Then those organizations can move up to the Cultural Anchor status, and then after a period of time, organizations could move up into the Cultural Institution status. The initial placement is going to be based on the organization's age and number of years they have received city funding, so we're really looking to continue supporting organizations that have received funding for a long time because we trust them to use dollars well. But organizations can move up or down tiers based on their performance or their length of time in program. So if they're not hitting annual performance measures, they will go back down. For a long time, there wasn't a source of accountability in the cultural institution program. We are building that into it now. And so we're hoping the grants will open today, May 9th, and they will close Monday, August 4th. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. And I just want to give him a highlight that the growth we've seen in the program is really thanks to Jesse's continuous outreach that he's done in the community. His office is a few doors down from mine, and he's on the phone all day, every day with prospective applicants, guiding them through the process. Many of them, especially at the individual artist level, are first-time applicants. This is their first time applying for any grant. Whether they get the grant with us or not, they leave with skills to then apply for future funding. So kudos to Jesse for all he does. Moving on into other areas of the plan, Objective 2.2 is to create an efficient and effective workplace environment for the division. At the time we were creating the strategic plan, we were kind of volleying between Parks and Rec and City Manager's office. We had previously been officed out of Century 2, and that went into private management. We are now structurally back into the City Manager's office and receive administrative support through the office. So that has settled down a little bit, or the fluctuation has settled down. We also brought on 2 new executive directors to the division last year at Botanica and Old Cowtown Museum. So we're excited to have great leadership at both of those organizations.
Lindsay, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have a timeline on a director for the Mid-America All Indian Museum?
I wish we did. I will say we did just reopen the position today
Okay.
for recruitment. So
Perfect timing.
we are looking to find the right person to fill that important role in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Our curator, Aaron Rue, is serving as interim director until that position is filled, though. Our next objective is to ensure city-owned cultural arts facilities and assets are a source of great community pride and accessible to all. This is an area that we've been working really hard over the last few years on, is to make sure we understand our assets and we know how to take care of them. The bullet point I want to highlight here is the 4th one, that we completed some additional work with the DST, the Public Works' decision support tool. Previously, Cowtown and Botanica were not fully listed in that support tool, only the main buildings were. So this allows us to make sure that we're taking care of all the buildings at Cowtown, not just the visitor center. So we completed that process last year, which was a really, I mean, if you've been to Cowtown, there's 40 plus buildings, to make sure that we have the entire portfolio of buildings into the DST was really important. So now it can inform future CIP, which whenever you do see the CIP for next year, you'll see some additional facility requests specifically for Cowtown and Botanica to make sure we're addressing the full 40 acres worth of properties and not just the main buildings. So we're really proud of that and thankful to Public Works for their assistance in that process. And then last year we had launched the Public Art Archive. It feels like it was 10 years ago that we did that, but we did that last spring, which is the first time that we have a public listing of the public art collection with a comprehensive map, professional photography, so that the public can engage with the collection. Our next objective is to increase the number of cultural arts facilities and assets to meet the community's needs. I will say we didn't crack the code on this one over the last year, but something that we're continuing to do is to keep in touch with our local performing arts groups in particular to make sure we understand their facility needs. We're also working with ASM on negotiations with the IATSE union to make sure that we have competitive rates for our local nonprofits to perform in Century 2. That's kind of a trickier conversation, but something that we hear a lot is there's a financial barrier to enter for our local arts organizations to perform at Century 2. Our next objective is to establish Wichita as a regional hub for cultural arts. Of course, we want to be the best, and we want to be seen outside of our community. I have the honor of serving on the Kansas Arts Commission, our state arts agency, as well as the Kansas Arts Network, which is our state arts advocacy group. I also participate with Americans for the Arts as the state captain for Kansas to follow federal initiatives as they relate to the arts. We also work with across the state on things like supporting film tax credit initiatives, and I know this body was heavily involved with that this past legislative session as well. We work really hard on the AEP data, the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study, to really set it as a state standard. And then we attend a variety of professional conferences and present at them as well. And then just to highlight that 2 local artists, Connie Bonfi and Dr. Cecil Riney, received Governor's Arts Awards this year for their outstanding contributions to the community. So there are 3 kind of like the big Lifetime Achievement Awards given to Kansas artists, and 2 of them were from Wichita, so we should be really proud of that.
When were those given out?
Last month.
It would be great. I would love to recognize them during our city council meeting, during our awards session.
Noted.
Would that be a possibility?
Absolutely, I can
Thank you.
help organize that. Mhm. And then we also work with several organizations on receiving NEA grants. I will share that if you've heard some things happening at the NEA level, there have been some cancellation on grants from the National Endowment of the Arts, including the City of Wichita, and we're working with our different advocates to better understand what that means to our community. Our next objective is to partner with organizations to increase the number of paid professional opportunities for artists and arts organizations in the community. Again, when we think about 2024 being a setting up the baseline data, we're really trying to track how many paid opportunities there are for artists in our community, and we're really proud of the numbers that we got in this first year. We now ask for that data in our annual reports and are really challenging our arts organizations to think about, like, what is a paid opportunity? It could be a graphic designer, it could be hiring a musician to perform at a gala. All of those count, and so we're doing a lot of coaching with our organizations to think about all the different times that they pay a local artist to create or present work with their facilities. And then this last bullet point, I will say we're getting ready to unveil a public artist toolkit. It's in its final stages. This is a project that has been about 2 years in the works. This is really a toolkit for local artists to better engage with our public art program, to know how to competitively bid on projects. That's something we hear consistently is, why didn't a local artist get that job? And it's because we do a national competitive bid process for a lot of them. And our local artists just haven't put together the portfolio skills to be in that competitive lens. So this toolkit is something that we're rolling out to really help our local artists be competitive in the process. And then some really exciting numbers. Based on the 38 organizations that the city supported financially last year through our grant program, I will just note that this does not include Century 2 or some of our kind of ad hoc organizations. It doesn't include Riverfest. This doesn't include the zoo. This is really just the organizations that the city directly funds. But our economic impact for the sector, based on the dollars that the city put into the community, is $102 million. So based on about a $5 million contribution from the city, or a $5 million grant program, we have a economic impact of $102 million in the last year. 1,400 local jobs were supported by the sector or by this direct funding model. And then we had over 1,000 or 1,300 paid opportunities for local Wichita artists, which is really exciting. And then we're also tracking non-local artist opportunities. So 474 non-local artists were paid to present or create work in our community, which is super exciting to have that baseline data. Moving into public art, which is another area that we do a lot of work in. Last year, we had 9 RFQs that were initiated, and we received 536 applications for. So again, when we talk about like the competitive application process, we want our local artists to be competitive in it, but we're really we want to make sure we're putting the best of the best into our projects. We did have an increase in external participation on selection committees by 180% last year. And then this next bullet point I think is really important to talk about, because 58% of the opportunities that were awarded last year were awarded to Wichita area artists. So of about the $1 million we put into public art last year, $678,000 went to a local artist for a commission. And I'll keep rolling here, or I might just highlight this last bullet point, is that we have 6 works they're currently in some sort of restoration process. 2024 was the first time we used the percent for art dollars for maintenance. So 10% of that fund is used for maintenance projects. So we now have like a functional system for restoration work, and we currently have 6 works in restoration that are backlogged from 2024. And then the next couple slides are areas for opportunity. So I might say that this could be interpreted as weaknesses or lowlights, but this is where in a 5-year plan, 1 year in, where we are hearing concerns or hear that there's an opportunity. And one of them is the stability of public funding. It's a concern that the sector definitely has. The conversations around summer sunflower program are going to hit our community pretty deeply this year. The Kansas Arts Commission received a pretty significant cut this year from state funding. They're waiting to hear what their national funding match is going to be. And then the insecurity of funding really at the national level is really trickling down into our community that is concerning for the sector. Similarly, the growth in the cultural funding program, while we're really excited that we have more and more applicants year over year, the funding pool has not grown at the same rate. So while we're giving more quantity of grants out, the quantity of funding in those grants is not growing at the same pace. So similarly, our grantees are getting concerned, especially longtime recipients, that the operational funding that they received 10 years ago in the program is less than half of what they're receiving now, despite doing incredible work in the community. They're still scoring really high, but they often feel like they're being penalized because the community is growing and the cost of business is growing, but their grants that they're actually receiving are not growing. Couple other areas for opportunity is the continued need for affordable performing arts spaces. This is something we hear consistently, and it's not just performance space, but meaningful rehearsal space, specifically for dancers who really need springboarded floors to protect their bodies. We don't really have, I would say, quality rehearsal space for performing arts, let alone performance space. And then the other objective that we listed as an aspirational goal in the plan was to achieve top 40 status as one of the most vibrant communities in the country. And it's challenging for us to even compete at that level because of the federal and state dollars that are allocated in Kansas. No Kansas community is currently listed because of how they do the rubric in naming those top 40 cities. Wichita unfortunately will not be in that mix anytime soon unless there's state dollars at the Arts Commission level to match what we do as a community. So I would say anecdotally, fit this list very, very well, but because of the rubric that SMU Data Arts is the company that does this listing, we're not going to be able to be competitive in that listing or be named in that listing without federal and state dollars coming our way. And I believe this is our final one, but couple other areas for opportunity is the need for affordable fine art studio space is something that we hear a lot, and the need for affordable housing for the creative workforce, specifically including temporary housing for residencies. And I'll use Music Theater Wichita as kind of the example. They bring in, upwards of 100 artists to the community, professional, paid artists to the community every summer, and they really struggle finding temporary housing for those artists. But I think that same sentiment goes across many organizations who can bring the talent in but don't really have a place to house them. So that's something that we hear continuously. And with that, that's our annual update for the Cultural Arts Strategic Plan. Happy to answer questions if there are any. We are 1 year into a 5-year plan.
I do have one question, but first, just thank you for all the work that you were doing, and you as well for spreading the information about this and getting more people engaged in the arts. I'd love to see the progress we're making on the strategic plan. My question is maybe a little weird. Did that event that I went to, was that for letting local artists know about funding opportunities when we were at City Arts?
Yes, I think that was one of our informational sessions about the grants.
Have you been doing more of those?
We will. So we launched the grants today, and I think we have 2 or 3 built-in informational sessions into the next couple months, I think. And we do also have virtual ones where we record them and post them on our website. So at midnight on the deadline, you can refer back to it.
Okay. Well, I'd love to come to another one. It was cool to talk to them about just opportunities that we have in some of our current projects and encouraging them to participate because they are what make our city pretty awesome when we can incorporate their work into our projects.
Noted. I'll let you know whenever we have them scheduled.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to thank you for the presentation, Jesse, and of course, Lindsay, and thank you for all you do. I love the way that you're interacting with the non-for-profits in a really great way, and that's how we were able to go from 1/3 to 2/3 of the folks participating in the AEP6, which is so helpful for us to better tell the economic impact story that arts have in our community, not just the vibrancy it brings, but so tendering those relationships is really important, and it takes a lot of time. So that's certainly recognized. I also wanted to say thank you for the stories and the quotes. I think that, we often think with our head, but we think with our heart, and seeing the true impact that the work that our cultural arts programs do really is impactful. So thank you for finding a really great way to show that. And just really want to thank you both for being visionary. I love the fact, for example, working with City Arts, and now they're a licensed child care provider to help some of our kiddos maybe think of and be exposed to the arts in different ways that they might not be able to, but then also create more spaces for child care. So it's a win-win. So just kudos all around. Thank you for all you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay and Jesse.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we begin with comments, I'm going to share a video that was revealed yesterday in Bentonville, Arkansas. The city of Wichita was selected as one of 3 secret sauce cities alongside Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Fargo, North Dakota. And this video was produced by Heartland Forward, which is a nonprofit that wants to move the Heartland forward. There are 20 states that represent the Heartland, and the economic impact of these 20 states, the GDP of these 20 is the 3rd biggest area, right below the entire US and China. So it really shows that the Heartland really is a driver, and more people need to think about investing in the Heartland. So I was really proud to represent the city of Wichita. There were no taxpayer dollars spent on that. So here's the video.
The secret sauce of Wichita is its entrepreneurial spirit, its legacy of aviation, its innovation, its passion, and its drive to become the very best it can be.
There's this entrepreneurial spirit that I think is born from the value system. When you combine those values like humility and integrity and work ethic, and you have that kind of farm team approach, you have a better chance of succeeding.
People in this town, they're not strangers to success. Pizza Hut came from here, Coke industry. We have Cessna, we have Boeing.
The air capital of the world is Wichita, Kansas, but for me, air actually stands for something. It's our aviation, innovation, and research.
It goes back to the 1920s, when Beechcraft and Cessna were started. It goes back to Stearman and the very first plane that was built that was right here.
Just within the last year, we broke ground on a whole new biomedical campus that's in the core of our district. That one building will generate 3,000 medical students, 200 faculty and staff, 1,600 jobs.
There's areas that I'm very excited about for Wichita. One of those is education. The Phillips Learning Center, which is one of the nation's leading schools around dyslexia. We have that right here in Wichita.
We have such a culturally diverse community, a strong Mexican, Lebanese, and even Vietnamese culture right here in Wichita. I am so proud of the cultural diversity of our city because it makes for great quality of life, but also a very vibrant food scene.
It's such an honor to have, to be a semifinalist in the James Beard Award. It's every chef's dream. There is a lot of young chefs here in this town. It's something I'm proud of and the whole city proud of.
You have an Intrust Bank Arena, which is bringing in talent, not only from North America. We just recently had the men's NCAA first round here, where thousands of people were on the ground walking our streets.
The thing that sets Wichita State University and WSU Tech apart from educational institutions across the nation is that we are disruptive innovators. If you're a business coming into Wichita and we don't have what you need, we're gonna build it. And we're gonna build it right with you.
The Keeper of the Plains keeps a watchful eye over the city of Wichita. He stands in the middle between the Little and the Big Arkansas River, and that's really because he is there to be a connector. And it's a reminder of our history with the Native American culture, but it also reminds us that he is welcoming people into the community.
People, they root for the underdog. They help with no condition, and they don't care if you're rich or poor, or how light or how dark is your skin. This is a pure people living in this town. And I love everything about my town. And I owe it to the city. I really do.
And there's just at the core of who we are as a community to say, let's go after these great big things. Let's not be inhibited by this, and then let's follow up with the investment.
You can't help but want to be a part of this. It's passion, it's excitement, it's forward thinking, it's moving ahead.
I've spent a lot of time on the coast in New York and Boston and technology hubs like Silicon Valley. But the center of the country is where stuff is made.
We have no mountains or oceans, but what makes Wichita special is its people. They're the people who build the planes that fly over the heartland. And these are the people that make Wichita so special.
Come be part of the ride. Be a Wichitan. Be a Kansan. There's no better place.
If that did not make you feel good about being a Wichitan, I don't know what else can. But I'm really grateful to the 4 individuals who were also interviewed. In that video, you have 2 born and raised Wichitans, you have 2 immigrants, and you have someone who chose to come to Wichita. And I think that's the secret sauce of our community. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to represent the city of Wichita in Bentonville. This is a great city, and there's a lot of work to be done, but there are great people trying to do that great work. So any other comments from council members?
Yeah, other than me wanting to move to Wichita, just want to say Happy Mother's Day. It's coming up this weekend, so Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
See you guys on Tuesday.